that was the point at which my friend, who was a musician, said, you should come and have a look at these fruit flies. You like making docos? And it sounded like a bookend for the heavy-hitting street kids thing, which was quite depressing, but illuminating. And I got driven to go, well, it would be good to make a film that was more joyous and more inspirational, something that
links you to the fruit flies.
Yeah,
Welcome to The Journey, and my guest today is a man who's well known in the arts, I've got to read this correctly, I don't want to start this up, former technical director and operations manager of HotHouse Theatre, Rob Scott. Rob, hello, nice to meet you.
Hi there, how are you going?
No, I'm good. Did I get that little mouthful
Yes, you
correct?
did, yes. It's a technical mouthful.
Well, rather more colloquially, you have been described as part of the furniture at HotHouse Theatre for many decades.
Yes, indeed. They so much so that when I retired, they named the bar after me. So
that's right. So Bobby's Bar is named after yourself.
That is myself. Yes.
Yeah, terrific. Well, what we'll do is we'll investigate all about your relationship with HotHouse Theatre and the arts. But first, we always start in the same way, Rob, and that's to find out your connection with the region. Are you born and bred here, or come from elsewhere?
No. I came to Albury in 1987. At the time, I was making documentary films, and I'd been persuaded that there was a fabulous opportunity up here with the Flying Fruit Fly Circus. So I came up and I saw a show of theirs, which was at the end of a Nanjing 2 training program with the Chinese acrobats at the Albury Stadium. It was such a fantastic show. It just blew me away. And I came up and I bought a video camera and we videoed the show, and then we kind of established a bit of a relationship with the people at Fruit Flies. And I then went back to Melbourne. We were living in Melbourne, born and bred, and chased down some funding, and I managed to come up here to make a documentary film about the fruit flies.
Yeah.
So that was the beginning of. We came for 6 months and stayed for 35 years.
Oh, classic. We do
One
hear
of
a
those.
lot of those
Yeah, one
kinds
of
of
those.
stories. But the fruit flies, the fruities, one of our absolute success stories, and we'll get back to those guys coming up soon. But let's go back then to Melbourne.
Yep.
And your childhood. Whereabouts in Melbourne did you grow up?
Okay, so I had a fortunate childhood, I think, growing up on the outskirts of Melbourne, in what was then a leafy bush suburb called Eltham, and there, and my parents, I'll just pay tribute to both my parents, who were, highly talented and hardworking people, and we built a house in the bush and got involved with the kind of mud brick bush building era, and went to Eltham High School, which was then renowned for academic and sporting and all sorts of cultural events and things. And so after high school, I went to Melbourne University, because one of my passions has always been that I wanted to build things, and I still do. I want to make stuff, and so I thought, I want to be a builder. I want to build houses and design them. And so I got into Melbourne University, started an architecture course. After 6 months, couldn't stand the maths and dropped out, and went and became a builder's labourer, which was where I learnt so much more about building than I ever did doing the maths at university. So I did that and dropped in and out of a couple of other university courses, but ended up, after travel around the world, all of those things, which was then quite easy to do.
Yeah.
I went with a mate in 1973 to Europe with a plane ticket, a one-way plane ticket, no plan of how to get back, any of those things.
Yeah,
that was
brilliant.
All possible then. You're not allowed to do that now, I don't
No
think.
onerous security checks
Correct.
back then. And
Yes. And
all
so
the rest.
did that, worked in Europe, came back, and then got stuck into an arts course and got involved with filmmaking. And so that was where I got the passion for creating stories and following stories, and so a mate of mine who was a musician, he set up a little recording studio in the back room of a rented house, and I started a little editing suite where in the old days it was real film, where you're cutting up bits of celluloid and hanging them on the wall and putting it all together. So we made lots of little films and music videos and things like that, and decided, we got kicked out of the house actually, both our partners, my beautiful wife, who's still with me, bless her.
Mara?
Mara, yes. Mara has been with me for this journey, and we were making so much noise in the back room that the girls kicked us out and said, you've got to find somewhere to go and do it somewhere else. So we found a old rundown 2-story factory in North Fitzroy, rented it out, $30 a week I think it was, and decided that if we can't set up a business, a recording studio and film production house in 3 months for $3,000, then something wrong. So we both went out, my partner and I, and got the max limit on your bank card, which was $1,500 I think, and so we then got some friends in and we constructed a recording studio, not dissimilar to this, in the old factory, and started a business doing demos for bands and all of that, which was a fabulous introduction to the technical world, because I was doing film clips and my partner was recording bands like Men at Work and Captain Matchbox Band, with great names from those days. And then we decided that we took on another partner, and I was, as I say, more involved in film. We made some documentary films, and we were commissioned to make a film about street kids in Fitzroy Street, St Kilda, and that was a fly on the wall kind of operation, where we went in and we were basically there to get the stories from the people who were in terrible straits, all these homeless kids, so many of them. We offered them the opportunity to put their stories on film, and they did. The product was a film called Street Kids, which took 6 months to do. We lived on the streets with these kids. It was quite an experience. And, it was shared in the traumas and the hardship and all of that sort of stuff. So it was a pretty heavy-hitting story that ended up going to air on Channel 9, I think, and won an AFI award for. So that was very satisfying. The business continued. We kept doing that kind of work for a few years. In fact, that business lasted for 10 years, I suppose, towards the end of which we decided that we needed to move on. So we sold up all our gear, and that was the point at which my friend, who was a musician, said, you should come and have a look at these fruit flies. You like making docos. And it sounded like a bookend for the heavy-hitting Street Kids thing, which was quite depressing, but illuminating. And I got driven to go, well, it would be good to make a film that was more joyous and more inspirational, something that
links you to the fruit flies.
Yeah, would be great for kids to watch.
Let's just put a stop to that for now, because I want to go back.
Yep.
You were talking about what it was like to, with real film and setting up a studio and all of that kind of stuff. And nowadays, it's just so much more accessible.
Indeed.
It's crazy. Not only from a technical perspective, I mean, we can do things on our phones that you could never have done with the cameras back then, but also with the platforms as well. I mean, YouTube, you can just put something up within 20 minutes of filming it. But would you rather be a young person doing it the way you did it, or do you look on at the younger people doing it now with all of the things that we've got at our disposal and go, geez, I wish I was doing it now as a young person?
Yeah. Well, I am doing it now.
Yes, but in terms of starting a career, do you think it's...
I'm glad. One thing I appreciate having done is to learn slowly. By making films the old way, the traditional way, you have a limited amount of film, like you buy 10 minutes of film, if you like, that you can shoot, and you shoot it, and then you've got to send it off to the lab, and it comes back the next day.
Yes.
And then you've got to edit it, and you've got to make choices in a very considered way.
And that's helped you
Absolutely.
even in this age of excess with...
Absolutely. And these days the temptation is just to keep shooting stuff,
Yes.
and that's what happens. And of course then you've got to go back and go, now where was that? And the other thing about the old way, not that I necessarily would want to do it that way anymore because the digital process is so much more effective, is that you did learn the value of every second of film, and you learn to track it. You have to hang it on a hook and keep notes on it and be very organised about how you put the thing together. So those things I think are very useful tools. No, not that the new way is fantastic, and I'm forever shooting stuff on my phone, but I wonder sometimes what's the value of it. So there's been there's so much stuff around now these days. I think it gets a bit diminished in terms of the importance of it.
Yeah, no, I totally understand that. Let's go back even further, because you were talking about your childhood and your parents. Were your parents artistic? Were your parents storytellers? Did they start the flame?
My mum was, particularly. Dad was a quiet, silent achiever. And he worked a straight job for 40 years or whatever it was. Mum was a teacher, but she was also a musician, singer, and both Dad and Mum and Dad played the piano. They both sung in choirs. Mum had, and I think I inherited Mum's busy hands. She was always doing something with her hand, whether it was knitting or craft work or all of those kinds of things, which rubbed off. And beyond that, it was that I'm one of three kids. I'm the middle one, and probably known as the rowdy one. We were encouraged to explore our own talents and pursue artistic things. And I think they sometimes wondered what the hell I was doing. But to be given that freedom by the parents, but also it was the time. Growing up during the 60s and early 70s was felt like a much freer time where exploring new things, taking risks was a little bit more encouraged, and I'm glad I came through that.
Yeah, and it's interesting too because you're talking about storytelling there. A lot of people become specialists in a particular medium, and they become passionate just as much about the medium as they do about the stories.
Yes.
But the fact that you have worked so long at HotHouse would suggest to me that you're perhaps more about the story itself, perhaps, more than the actual medium. Would that be fair to say?
Yes, indeed. I've always been a doer of things, and I love to put my hand to lots of different things. In fact, I'm sure Mum and Dad tore their hair out, and the word dilettante, I think, came up quite a bit. Why don't you focus on one thing?
Yes.
But because I was encouraged to do that, I explored music, I explored photography, I explored painting, I did jewellery. My grandfather, who was also a talented artist in his own right, he was a woodcarver, and I inherited all these woodcarving tools when he died. And even now, that's one of my passions, is to get into the shed and to make little wood sculptures and things like that. But yes, telling the story, filmmaking is very much a collective effort to tell a story. And that was one of the things I loved about filmmaking, is you can create a story and put it on tape and then show it to people. Coming up here, interestingly enough, not that I lost the interest, but I found a new one, which was live theatre. And live theatre is such a dynamic art form that it encompasses all those kind of creative needs of putting a film together, but got to do it every day, got to do it every night. And so a live production is one of the most wonderful things to be part of. And you can't do that on your own. So it's very much a collaborative thing, and I've always enjoyed team sports. So I love working with other people and helping create, something out of that.
So after you started working with the fruit flies, how long did it take for you to say, wow, you said that you started to get connections and the like in the region, and I can certainly understand that as well. But how long did it take before you kind of thought, well, you know what, I actually want to make a life here, and did your wife share those sentiments at the time?
No. She was very much a city girl, and we had come from inner city Melbourne. And one of the things about working is that I've always liked to be close to work. I had the idea of commuting from outer suburbs to go somewhere to work is difficult for me to comprehend. But coming here, it was a 6-month commitment to start with. We were going to stay here for 6 months to make this film, which was fascinating. I loved every minute of being involved in fruit flies and meeting all the people and interacting with the kids and seeing the skills that they were developing.
And what year was this?
This was it was quite a seminal year for fruit flies as well, because 1987 was the year that the fruit fly school started, which was just an amazing, incredible enterprise in education. That was one of the hooks that kept us here. Our daughter Alana, who was then 7, and our son was then a baby, and we were all here, and we rented a house for 6 months so that we could finish the film, had an editing suite in the house and all of that. So I guess during that 6 months, our daughter started doing a bit of training with the fruit flies, and almost inevitably at the end of the 6 months, and I was wrapping up the film, she was right into it, and we had made such good connections. And it wasn't just with fruit flies, it was with their parent company, which was Murray River Performing Group, which was the theatre company that the fruit flies grew out of. And so got to meet some wonderful artists and actors, and they had an ensemble and they did shows, and I videoed shows, and we kind of got together, and I got involved with building some sets. And so there's a bit of a morphing into a lifestyle that was pretty attractive. And part of my feeling was that I had grown up in the semi-bush rural setting where you could wander for days in the bush and not meet any. Well, it wasn't like that, but you had the freedom of moving around, and we lived near the Yarra River, and we used to spend summers just jumping in and out of the river and whatever. So we had experience of that kind of bush lifestyle. And when the daughter was growing up, the beginnings of the family, we were living in a city, so it was pretty full-on intense traffic, noise, pollution, all of those kind of things. And we felt that, okay, maybe it was an idea that the thing of growing up in the bush or near the bush, having access to the freedom of movement, was one of the points that we made about staying here.
Yeah.
And so we did. Alana and I voted out her mum, unfortunately, for her. She's happy now. She wouldn't move, I don't think. And because our son Jesse was a baby at the time, he had no vote, but he became a circus thing person. So he grew up being thrown around by all the kids, and then having chosen to stay here, he grew big enough to start training with the fruities, and now he's a full-blown acrobat with his own circus company. And,
that's brilliant.
Yeah, and that's been one of the most satisfying things, I guess, is to have made that choice and stayed here, and loved it ever since.
Yeah. Well, I mean, you've seen from 1987 to today, you've seen well and truly a burgeoning arts kind of sector in Albury and Wodonga.
Yes.
Have you been, really happy with the way that it's evolved here?
Yes, indeed. And I think it's fair to say there's something there's something in the air here, something spiritual that means partly because it's on a river, it's on a border. There's the interaction between the two cities, Albury and Wodonga. There's a historical context of the Aboriginal connection with this place as a meeting place. A lot of things conspired to make this a productive part of the world culturally, and I think it already was when we arrived. But then, I guess the focus has become more intense, and the success of Fruit Flies is probably a really good example of what can happen when you've got a good idea in a place that will support it. And yes, the interaction between Fruit Flies and HotHouse, and it's part of the reason we live in South Albury. We used to call it the arts ghetto because it was a cheap place to live, but equally it was close to work, which is one of my earlier things, which was so fabulous to have the kids can just walk from our place to the training centre, and I can get on my bike and ride over the bridge to HotHouse on the island. So it all worked really well, and culturally, I think it's dynamic. There's a lot of, and it's not just HotHouse and Fruit Flies. You've got lots of amateur theatre companies, all the schools. I've been doing some work with Albury High School, who are producing a play about Alice in Wonderland at the Albury Entertainment Centre later in the year. And that's so dynamic. I was there yesterday watching an early run of their show. It was pretty chaotic and noisy in their gym, but just to watch them, the commitment to doing that acting and putting a show together is fabulous. And that's, I guess, one of the things that's stuck with me. And working with young people has been the other factor in all of that. So
yeah,
during the years at HotHouse, I always would have a technical trainee, who would come on board and learn, I guess, the ropes, but learn in a real theatre context, and learn the hard yards of what you got to do to get the skills together to make it work.
Yeah. How much passion is there for theatre
here? I think there's a lot, actually. I'm not sure it's always focused on the one thing. There's definitely an appreciation of good theatre, because we went and saw what was Come From Away at the Albury Entertainment Centre a couple of months ago. Chock-a-block was full. There was about 1,000 people in there. A straight, I call that straight theatre, although it's not necessarily that straight, but it's traditional theatre, has got a really strong following. There's been a mixed and, I guess, changeable following for the sort of product that HotHouse Theatre has done. Some of the shows that HotHouse has done have been huge, and a lot of it because the commitment has been to produce new work and challenging work. Doesn't always ring a bell for a lot of people to go and see.
Yeah, well, actually, I was going to ask you about that. Does it connect to the general populace as well as it could, and does that even matter?
Look, it does if you can get people to go there, and that's one of a lot of the challenges for HotHouse now are to be able to create theatre that is not only relevant but is going to draw people into it. There have been some plays that I've seen and been part of that are most brilliantly devised, produced and performed pieces, but because they're about a difficult subject, it's very hard to sell that to a public who just wants to be entertained. So entertainment values, if you can produce something that combines the ideas with an interest that's visual or entertaining or whatever, then it's very, very popular. So HotHouse over the last few years has done little things like reviving the old Galah Bar kind of events where it's almost like people would come and try out their bits and pieces, but in a fun kind of atmosphere. They've been quite popular. And the challenge has been for HotHouse to produce work that is diverse enough that can get hold of an audience that will appreciate it.
Yeah. Definitely a challenge with so much content flying around as well.
Oh,
I
indeed.
mean, it's like how people actually spend their time. It's just harder than ever in a lot of ways.
Yes.
It sounds to me as well, just listening to your story, that you certainly haven't. I mean, I've talked to a lot of people who are very focused from a young age about what they want to do. This is what I want to do, and this is how it's going to happen.
Yeah.
But it sounds like, to me, Rob, your life has just taken so many twists and turns, even if it's in the same location.
Sure.
You know, I mean, you may have lived here for a long
Sure.
time, but there's so many twists and turns within that.
Yes. Well, that gets back to the dilettante thing. I've always had multiple interests, and I can get and as a child in school, I was easily distracted because I'd see something, I want to do that, and then I'd see something else, I want to do that.
Nowadays, they'd say you had ADHD.
I know. Now I probably would have been diagnosed that way, but managed to survive all of that. And I guess there were certain things along the way that helped me focus. To be able to achieve anything, you've got to actually focus for a period of time and make sure you work through the process to get to it. So I've become much more of a process person. So I understand that you can't just chase your tail. But I do have multiple interests, and I've always, I guess, trying to respond to what it is that has driven me. It's that I've always just wanted to make stuff, and the making of stuff is the most satisfying thing in the world. Whether it's a little carving or learning a piece of music on the piano, or taking a great photo, or even one of the latest things is compiling a family history, and finding a process whereby you can collect all the photos from all the family and put them in a file that will be accessible to the next generation, kind of thing.
Yeah. Do you ever regret not focusing specifically on something and block out some of the others? So, for example, woodwork.
Yeah.
So, I mean, if you just focused on that 100% for many years, do you regret that, or is that something you've been perfectly happy with because dabbling in things is rewarding in its own way?
No, it doesn't. It doesn't. I'm not unhappy about it. I think possibly I would have been more successful in life, in financial terms, had I moved on from working in the arts, which the bottom line is you choose a life in the arts, you've got to choose to live in poverty. Is kind of a fun quote, but the reality, it is kind of real. And but equally, I have many friends who have gone on and done that focus thing and become a particular specialist. And they've often said to me, I'd love to do what you do. It's kind of, I think it swings and roundabouts. I would like to be better at a lot of the things that I do, but equally, I'm content that I can do them as well as I can.
Yeah. Well, let's talk about money then for a second. How important is money to you? I mean, yes, it is. It's an old kind of cliche, and I cop it as well in these kind of areas. I mean, they're not renowned necessarily for getting a lot of money. Does it matter?
Look, in the end, it doesn't. In my experience, there have been times that we've really struggled financially, particularly in the early days when I mentioned that having a crazy idea to build a recording studio for $3,000 is crazy. It's quite crazy, but we were able to do it. And we struggled through all of those 10 years to pay the rent and make it all happen. But we did the work, and once you do the work, it doesn't matter how much it costs. And I think that would be the same if you had plenty of money. You still want to achieve a result, and that's been the focus. But buying, one of the reasons we bought a house in South Albury was because it was the only place we could afford to. But we love it here. You go same distance on the other side of Dean Street and you'll be paying $1.5 million. So money's never been important to me except for its ability to make things happen.
Yes, yeah.
So chasing finance for a film, or just being able to buy some tools or whatever.
Is the disparity in the arts better or worse today than it ever has been, or is it roughly the same? Because as we know, if you make it, quote unquote, in certain areas, you can be a bazillionaire.
Yes.
but it's just only a select few, and it's only in certain areas. So I mean, is the differential any better today or worse?
I'm not sure it's any. I mean, it's different because, as we talked about before, the access to the means to produce stuff is so much more available. Yeah. Like you can make something really cheaply and get it out on YouTube or whatever, in a way that you could never in the past. To make a 5-minute film would cost you thousands of dollars. That was really a struggle to find. So in that sense, it's become easier to produce things. But I think it's been diluted as well in terms of the amount of product that is thrown at you all the time. There is so much more available to look at. So to compete for people's eyeballs is a much harder job.
Yes.
And for music, for example, you can sample all sorts of stuff, or you can create loops. You can do all sorts of amazing stuff on a keyboard or whatever. Doesn't mean your music's going to be any better. And the returns for a musician, unless, as you say, unless you make a big sale, is really difficult.
Yeah.
And you've got to be committed to your art first and foremost to struggle through and survive it. A lot of good musicians end up doing something else because they can't support themselves.
Yeah, I can totally understand that. I mean, even for the big acts, it's down to touring where they make a lot more of their money because physical sales essentially don't exist anymore.
Yeah, no records anymore.
And the amount of return on streaming is so little that it's like, it must be very difficult in that respect.
Yeah, so I think it's the same but different, different kind of, different results. But if the passion's there, the results will come.
So the young people, you were saying that you were often partnered with a young person at HotHouse who is just getting into the industry potentially and full of passion for it, et cetera, et cetera. Do you think it's a good sector to get involved with as a young person?
I do. And it's one of the age-old arguments in education that, that what's the art's worth, and there's a lot of conservative voices saying, doesn't matter, mate. Why are we funding the arts? Because what does it do for people? Well, start to analyse that, and you'll realise that it does an enormous amount for people's character, for their knowledge, for their ability to create in whatever way. So I'm a big believer that the arts is vital to a healthy society, and that if you don't support it, then you're kind of shooting yourself in the foot. I know there's, a lot of let's talk fruit flies. A lot of fruit fly graduates who are out there in the world now. Some of whom are performing for Cirque du Soleil, or at the peak of their actual acrobatic careers. But there's others who have become doctors or physiotherapists or all sorts of other things. And if you talk to them, they will not. There'll be no disparaging of their time as a fruit fly. It teaches you things that are slightly intangible that add up to a deeper connection and with other people and the world, and I think a brighter aspect too, a brighter thing about the world, that you can climb on each other and create something wonderful.
Yeah. No, that's really interesting. We do have a very strange relationship in a lot of ways to the arts. It's like you do hear a lot of people disparaging the arts, but at the same time, absolutely everybody consumes it on some level. I mean, the movies that it's like, if it's acceptable art, then that's fine, because everybody watches movies of any age and demographic. Everyone listens to music on some level. You know, they're all the arts,
Yes.
but then certain sectors of the arts, it's like
Yeah.
you can disparage
Yeah,
those.
that's right.
But, you know, Tom Cruise and his movie, of course you don't, because
No, of course.
it's
Yeah.
just a very strange
it is.
kind of view about the arts.
It is. It's a little bit. It's a little bit of the elitism of, or disparaging of the non-achievers. Like, and what are you doing if you're not making a hit?
Yeah,
Well, actually, I'm learning my craft.
Yes.
Actually, I'm experimenting with a whole lot of stuff that is going to add up to something one day.
Yeah.
So,
Where do you see the next 5 years for yourself in the arts?
yeah, look, to stay vertical and stay breathing would be the start of that. I'm loving. I know we now have grandchildren, 3 grandchildren who we live kind of vicariously through their achievements, and they're all great young, creative individuals who are now sort of working through their teenage
But you do
years,
a lot of
all
work as well, continually.
Oh, indeed.
Do a lot of
Yes,
work at the
yes,
moment.
yes.
I mean, you've retired from HotHouse Theatre,
Yes.
but you still.
Oh,
So
indeed.
give me a sense of what your kind of day to day, week to week looks like.
Oh well, at the moment, I'm in 2 weeks' time. I'm working, and this gets back to being employed by my son. There was something about sliding moments when I got the phone call from my son who'd just left his permanent employment as an acrobat, which is rare, to set up his own circus company. And he rang me and said, "We've got this show, Dad. We want to make, and do you want to be my lighting designer?" And I went, "Oh yeah, you're going to pay me?" And that was a huge moment where all of a sudden the ship had turned around slowly, and I was employed by my son, by my family, you know, and that was one of the brilliant things. Anyway, the show was called Knee Deep. It was in 2012. They've been touring it around the world for the last 10 more years, and this year they've brought it to fruit flies, and they're teaching it to 2 groups of fruit fly kids. And so it's on in 2 weeks. Everyone should come and see it at the Vaudeville Theatre at HotHouse, at Fruit Flies. And they're teaching a show that they devised to the young fruit flies, and I get to do the lighting design.
Yeah.
That's bliss for me. Apart from that, I'm making little wooden sculptures and carrying on in my shed, which I just as a cyclical thing. I make a huge mess and then create something little, and then I clean up the mess, ready to start again.
Yeah. So it sounds to me that you've got no intentions of giving up quote unquote work, because I mean it's not like normal work such, but you're going to continue while you still can, basically.
Oh, indeed. Yeah. Happy to keep doing it, and you know, unless arthritis cripples me, I'll keep making stuff, and that's been, I guess, the thing that's driven me all along. Has
it been a life well lived? When you look back, do you just go, "This has been brilliant"?
Can I say that?
Absolutely.
Yeah, it's. I feel so fortunate to have grown up at the time and place that I did, with the family that I have, and I've seen plenty of others who haven't had that opportunity. So I always feel giving back is an important part of getting old, and so to work with young people is inspirational. You know, doing the little gig with the Albury High School kids is another way of kind of helping them out and seeing them on a track that includes the arts. You know, there's so much that excludes the arts. So yeah, I'll keep doing that.
Yeah. Well, Rob, it's been absolutely fantastic learning your journey. Now, we do usually throw a few little softball questions at the end of the interview, but this is good because this is right up your alley, which is usually the final question that we always ask, which is any recommendations for us to consume in terms of artistically. So reading, watching, listening.
Yes. Okay. Book in at Flying Fruit Fly Circus.com.au, and you'll find the booking sheet for Knee Deep. And there's 6 days of shows. As I said, there's 2 groups of fruit fly kids, 2 casts of 5, and they alternate each night from the 12th to the 16th.
All right, that's terrific. Now, what if people are listening to this in 2 years' time? Well, have you got anything else that
That's coming up.
that's like a book, for example, that you've read, or a TV show, or some music that you've listened to?
Yeah. There are a few long-term projects which I don't know that will ever become public property, but certainly the HotHouse one of the things that has happened over the years is that at HotHouse I became the only one who was there at the beginning, and so forever everyone would say to a new employee who came in and said, you need to find out about how it all started. Go and talk to Rob. And so I'd inevitably have chats, and I quite love doing that. But in the end, it became difficult to arrange. So I did a PowerPoint presentation, and eventually HotHouse made a film about the first 25 years, which was good. But there's equally another task, which is about the collection of the records and photos and videos and all of that stuff that is valuable. And I know that Circus Oz, for example, has just done that. And so that's something I've got on the back burner that hopefully we can get a product, whether it's a book or a Wikipedia page or one of those things that would do that.
That'd be terrific. A beautiful,
beautiful
physical book.
Indeed, there's so much achievement that can be celebrated, but time passes and you forget.
I hope that does come to fruition. Rob, for everybody who drinks at Bobby's Bar and may not even know why it's called Bobby's Bar, but it's a terrific acknowledgement of your legacy at HotHouse Theatre. It's been fantastic learning about your journey and having a chat about the arts and your life. Rob Scott, thanks so much, mate. It's been an absolute pleasure.
My pleasure. Thank you.